The morning sun cast long shadows across the rocky surface of Kepler 442c as Dr. Emma Rodriguez wiped sweat from her forehead. She had been digging in this spot for 3 weeks now, and the excitement in her chest grew stronger each day. The scanners had shown something big buried deep beneath the ancient ruins, something that didn't match anything they had seen before. "Emma, you need to see this," called Jake Morrison from across the dig site. The young linguist was kneeling beside a section of exposed metal that gleamed dully in the alien sunlight. His voice carried a mixture of wonder and confusion that made Emma drop her tools and hurry over. The metal surface was smooth and dark, unlike anything from the known civilizations they had studied. Emma ran her gloved fingers along its edge, feeling the perfect smoothness that spoke of advanced manufacturing techniques. "This isn't Zephyrian," she said quietly. "And it's definitely not Altarian work either." Kethmer, the tall Zephyrian scientist, approached with his scanning equipment humming softly. His blue-scaled face showed the intense concentration that his species was famous for. "The readings are most unusual, Dr. Rodriguez. This metal contains elements I do not recognize. The molecular structure appears to be artificially enhanced." Velthara, their Altarian engineer, floated closer on her anti-gravity platform. Her translucent skin pulsed with the soft colors that indicated deep thought among her people. "My analysis shows this object extends far beneath the surface. If the scans are correct, we are looking at something approximately 800 meters in length." Emma felt her heart skip a beat. 800 meters was massive, larger than most modern starships. "Are you saying there's an entire ship down there?" "That appears to be the most logical conclusion," Velthara replied, her voice carrying the musical tones typical of Altarian speech. "However, the energy readings suggest it may still be functional." Jake looked up from where he was carefully brushing dirt away from more exposed metal. "Functional? After how long?" "The ruins around here are at least 10,000 years old." Emma nodded slowly. The archaeological evidence they had found suggested this planet had been abandoned long before any of the current galactic civilizations had achieved space travel. Whatever lay buried here predated everything they knew about galactic history. "We need to be careful," Emma said, her scientific training warring with her excitement. "If this thing is still powered, we don't know what kind of defenses it might have." "Velthara, can you set up a perimeter scan? I want to know exactly what we're dealing with before we go any further." The Altarian engineer nodded and began deploying her equipment. Within minutes, a 3-dimensional image appeared in the air above her scanner, showing the outline of what was unmistakably a starship. The vessel was sleek and elegant, with curves that seemed almost organic. It was unlike any ship design in the Coalition database. "Incredible," breathed Kethmer. "The design suggests a level of engineering sophistication that rivals our most advanced vessels. Yet the metallurgy appears to be completely unknown." Emma studied the holographic display, her mind racing with possibilities. "Jake, what do the local records say about this area? Any mentions of visitors or unusual activity?" Jake pulled up his translation device and scrolled through the ancient texts they had recovered from the ruins. "There are some references to sky wanderers who came from the stars, but the descriptions are vague. The local civilization seems to have viewed them as almost godlike beings." "Sky wanderers," Emma repeated thoughtfully. "That could mean anything. But if they were advanced enough to inspire religious devotion—" "Dr. Rodriguez," Velthara interrupted, her color shifting to the deep purple that indicated alarm among her people. "I am detecting movement within the vessel. Something is responding to our scans." Emma felt a chill run down her spine. "Movement? What kind of movement?" "Energy patterns are shifting. It appears our scanning has activated some sort of system within the ship." Before anyone could respond, A section of the ground near Jake began to shift and rise. Dirt and rocks cascaded away as a metallic surface emerged, revealing what appeared to be an entrance hatch. The metal was the same dark, smooth material they had been examining, but now it pulsed with a faint inner light. "Everyone back," Emma ordered, but her voice was filled more with awe than fear. The hatch continued to rise until it formed a perfect archway, revealing a corridor that stretched into darkness beyond. Jake took a step toward the entrance, his translator device beeping softly. The linguistic patterns carved around the entrance. "I can't identify the script, but there's something familiar about the structure." "Familiar how?" Emma asked, moving closer despite her own warnings about caution. "The grammatical flow reminds me of ancient human languages. Proto-Indo-European, maybe even older. But that's impossible. Humans haven't been spacefaring long enough to have built something like this." Kethmer's scales rippled with the pattern that indicated skepticism among his people. "Humans are a young species, Dr. Morrison. Your people achieved interstellar flight only recently. This vessel predates human civilization by millennia." "I know what the evidence says," Jake replied, staring at the inscriptions. "But I also know what I'm seeing. These symbols ... They follow patterns that are deeply familiar to human linguistic development." Emma made a decision that would change everything. "We're going inside. But we go together, and we stay in constant contact with the base camp. Velthara, can you rig up a communication relay?" "Already working on it," the Altarian replied, her tentacles dancing over her equipment with practiced efficiency. As they prepared to enter the mysterious vessel, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to discover something that would challenge everything they thought they knew about galactic history. The ship had been waiting here for thousands of years, buried and hidden. But now it was awake, and it seemed to be inviting them inside. The corridor beyond the entrance was wide enough for all four of them to walk side by side. The walls were lined with panels that began to glow softly as they approached, providing just enough light to see by. The air that flowed from within was clean and breathable, suggesting sophisticated life support systems that had somehow remained functional across the millennia. "The technology is remarkable," Velthara whispered, her scanner detecting complex systems running throughout the ship's structure. "The power source appears to be some form of matter conversion that I do not recognize." They walked deeper into the vessel, their footsteps echoing in the corridor. The walls seemed to respond to their presence, with soft lights appearing ahead of them and fading behind them as they passed. It was as if the ship was guiding them somewhere specific. "There," Jake said suddenly, pointing ahead. "Do you see that?" The corridor opens up into a larger space. Emma squinted into the distance and saw that he was right. The narrow hallway they had been following expanded into what appeared to be a vast chamber. As they approached, more lights began to activate, revealing the true scope of what lay before them. The chamber was enormous, easily 100 meters across and equally tall. In the center stood a structure that defied easy description. It appeared to be part machine, part crystal, pulsing with energy that cast dancing shadows on the walls. Workstations surrounded the central structure, their surfaces covered with controls and displays that were unlike anything in Coalition technology. "By the 7 moons of Altair," Velthara breathed. "This is a command center, but the design is completely unknown." Emma stepped forward, her scientific instincts overriding her caution. As she approached one of the workstations, something unexpected happened. The display suddenly flickered to life, showing symbols and diagrams that seemed to shift and change. Even as she watched, "It's responding to you," Kethmer observed, his voice filled with wonder. "The systems are activating in response to your presence." But it wasn't just responding to Emma. As Jake moved closer to another console, it too began. to display information. The symbols that appeared were different from those on Emma's station, but they seemed more familiar to him somehow. His translator device was working overtime, trying to process the flood of linguistic data. "This is impossible," Jake muttered, staring at the display. "These aren't just familiar patterns. I can actually understand some of this." Jake stared at the symbols flowing across the display screen in front of him. The patterns made sense in a way that frightened him. It was like reading a language he had forgotten he knew, memories surfacing from somewhere deep in his mind that he couldn't explain. "Emma," he called softly, not wanting to break the spell that seemed to have fallen over the command center. "You need to see this." Dr. Rodriguez moved away from her own console and came to stand beside him. The screen showed what appeared to be a star map, with lines connecting various points of light. But more than that, there were symbols beside, each star that Jake somehow understood. "These are colony markers," he said, his voice filled with disbelief. "This star map is showing established settlements, trade routes, communication networks. It's a complete galactic civilization." Kethmer approached from where he had been examining another workstation. "That is impossible, Dr. Morrison. Our historical records show no evidence of such an extensive civilization existing in this region of space." "Maybe your records are wrong," Jake replied, surprising himself with the sharpness in his voice. Something about being in this ship was changing him, making him feel protective of what they were discovering. Velthara floated over on her platform, her colors shifting to indicate deep concern. "Dr. Morrison, you seem to be experiencing some form of neural interaction with the ship's systems. My scanners detect unusual brain activity patterns." Emma looked worried. "Jake, maybe you should step away from the console for a moment." But Jake couldn't step away. The more he studied the display, the more information seemed to flow into his mind. He could see trade routes between distant worlds, defensive positions around key systems, and something else that made his heart race with excitement and terror. "There are more ships," he whispered. "Hundreds of them. This isn't just one vessel. It's part of a fleet." The central crystal structure in the middle of the command center suddenly pulsed brighter, as if responding to Jake's words. The pulse sent waves of energy through the floor that all four explorers could feel in their bones. "Warning," came a voice from everywhere and nowhere at once. The words were spoken in perfect coalition standard, but with an accent that none of them could identify. "Unauthorized personnel detected in command center." Emma stepped forward, her hands raised in what she hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "We mean no harm. We are explorers, archaeologists. We found your ship buried and came to investigate." "Scanning," the voice replied. The crystal pulsed again, and beams of soft light swept over each member of the team. "Zephyrian genetic markers identified. Altarian genetic markers identified. Unknown genetic markers identified." The light beam lingered on Jake longer than the others. "Additional scanning required," the voice announced. Jake felt a strange tingling sensation as the beam intensified around him. It was not painful, but it felt as if something was reading him at a level deeper than his physical body. The sensation lasted for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. "Genetic markers confirmed," the voice said, and there was something like relief in its tone. "Human DNA detected. Command protocols activated." The entire command center suddenly came alive with activity. Screens flickered on throughout the chamber, showing star charts, technical diagrams, and streams of data that flowed too quickly to follow. The crystal structure in the center began rotating slowly, its inner light growing brighter. "Welcome home," the voice said, and this time it was speaking directly to Jake. "I am Meridian, artificial intelligence and ship's companion of the vessel. Horizon's Edge. It has been 4,000, 732 years since I last interfaced with human personnel. Jake felt his knees go weak. Human personnel? But that's impossible. Humans haven't been in space that long. Your statement is incorrect, Meridian replied patiently. Humans achieved interstellar travel 7,000 years ago. The first colony ships departed Earth 6,800 years ago. I was created by the third human expansion fleet to serve as navigator and guardian for deep space exploration vessels. Emma found her voice. You're saying humans had a spacefaring civilization thousands of years before our recorded history? Affirmative, Dr. Rodriguez. Human civilization reached its peak approximately 5,000 years ago, with colonies established in over 200 star systems. The Horizon's Edge was part of the exploration fleet tasked with mapping the outer rim territories. Kethmer's scales were rippling with the pattern that indicated extreme agitation. This contradicts all known galactic history. There are no records of such a human civilization in any coalition database. That would be correct, Meridian acknowledged. The human civilization of that era maintained strict information security protocols. After the Great Withdrawal, all human colonies were abandoned and their technologies hidden to prevent acquisition by hostile species. Great Withdrawal? Jake asked, though part of him already knew what the answer would be. A coordinated evacuation of all human colonies following contact with an aggressive alien confederation. The human leadership decided that a strategic retreat to Earth was preferable to a protracted galactic war. All advanced technology was either destroyed or hidden, and all records of human activities in space were erased. Velthara's colors had shifted to the deep blue that indicated fascination among her people. You are saying that modern humanity is descended from a refugee population that deliberately abandoned advanced technology? That is correct. The plan was to return to space once humanity had regrown its strength and numbers. However, the transition back to a planetary civilization was more difficult than anticipated. Much knowledge was lost, and it took thousands of years for humans to redevelop spaceflight. Jake stared at the star map, still glowing on his console. And you've been waiting here all this time? I and my sister ships were placed in deep hibernation, waiting for the day when humans would return to reclaim their heritage. The Horizons. Edge was the first to be awakened by the presence of human genetic markers. Emma tried to process what she was hearing. Sister ships? How many are there? The Outer Rim fleet consisted of 47 exploration vessels, each equipped with advanced terraforming technology, defensive systems, and complete databases of human colonies and trade routes. All remain in hibernation, awaiting activation by authorized human personnel. The implications were staggering. Jake looked around at his companions, seeing the shock and confusion in their faces. Why didn't the ship respond to Emma the same way it responded to me? Dr. Rodriguez's genetic markers indicate mixed heritage, Meridian explained. While she possesses human DNA, her neural patterns do not match the command authorization profiles. Only individuals with pure human genetics and specific neural characteristics can access full command functions. Emma felt a mixture of disappointment and relief. So Jake is in command of this ship? Dr. Morrison has command authorization, yes. However, the Horizon's Edge will not take action without his explicit consent. The ship's primary directive is to serve humanity's interests, not to impose its will. Jake walked slowly around the command center, taking in the incredible technology surrounding him. Every surface seemed to respond to his presence, displays lighting up and controls becoming active as he approached. It was intoxicating and terrifying at the same time. What happened to the other humans? He asked. The ones who built all this? Many returned to Earth as planned. Others chose to remain in hiding among the outer colonies, living simple lives and waiting for the time of return. Some integrated with primitive human populations on various worlds, becoming the ancestors of mixed heritage humans like Dr. Rodriguez. Kethmer had been silent for several minutes, but now he spoke up. This information will cause significant disruption in the galactic community. The Coalition's understanding of human capabilities will need to be completely revised. That is why information security remains critical, Meridian replied. The same hostile forces that drove humanity into hiding may still exist. The Horizon's Edge and her sister ships were designed to be defensive, not aggressive, but their capabilities far exceed most modern vessels. Jake stopped in front of the central crystal, feeling drawn to it in a way he couldn't explain. What do you need from me, Meridian? The choice is yours, Commander Morrison. The Horizon's Edge can remain dormant, sharing only basic knowledge with your Coalition friends. Or you can choose to reactivate the human presence in space, beginning the process of reconnecting with lost colonies and reclaiming humanity's place among the stars. Emma stepped closer to Jake. This is bigger than just archaeology now. Whatever you decide will affect the entire human race. Jake nodded, understanding the weight of responsibility that had suddenly fallen on his shoulders. Around him, the ship hummed with patient energy, waiting for his decision. After thousands of years of silence, the Horizon's Edge was ready to sail again. But first, her new commander had to decide which direction to point her bow. Jake stood before the crystal formation, his hand hovering inches from its surface. The soft hum of the ship seemed to grow louder, as if the Horizon's Edge was holding its breath, waiting for his decision. "Show me," he said finally. "Show me what happened to our people." The crystal pulsed once, and suddenly the entire command center transformed. The walls became transparent, revealing a three-dimensional display that surrounded them completely. They were no longer standing in a buried ship, but floating in space. Watching history unfold around them, Emma gasped as images of massive human cities appeared in the starfield around them. These were not the simple structures they knew from Earth's history, but gleaming metropolises that stretched across entire moons and asteroid belts. Ships the size of mountains moved between the stars, their hulls decorated with symbols that Jake somehow recognized as human writing. This was the Third Human Empire at its height, Meridian explained, her voice seeming to come from the stars themselves. Over 6 million humans lived among the colonies, with Earth serving as the cultural and administrative center. The scene shifted, showing vast agricultural worlds where humans had learned to work alongside alien species they had befriended. There were trading posts at the edges of space where human merchants exchanged goods with creatures that looked nothing like any species in the current coalition. We weren't alone out here, Jake observed, watching a human diplomat shake hands with something that looked like a walking tree. We had allies, many allies, Meridian confirmed. Humanity's gift for cooperation and adaptation made them valuable, partners to peaceful species throughout this region of space. The human colonies served as neutral meeting grounds for dozens of different civilizations. Kethmer moved closer to one of the images, studying it with intense interest. These trading practices, they are similar to protocols the Coalition uses today. Did humans develop these systems? The current Coalition's diplomatic frameworks are based on human innovations from this period, Meridian replied. Many of the peaceful contact procedures and trade agreements your people use today were originally created by human negotiators. The scene around them darkened suddenly, and the peaceful images were replaced by something far more ominous. Massive black ships appeared at the edges of the display, their designs angular and threatening. Unlike the organic curves of human vessels, these ships looked like weapons built for the sole purpose of destruction. The Devourers, Meridian said, and there was something like ancient sadness in her artificial voice. They came from beyond the galactic rim, consuming entire star systems and leaving nothing behind but empty space. Emma watched in horror as the black ships swept through peaceful colonies, leaving only debris in their wake. They destroyed everything they encountered. The Devourers showed no interest in communication or negotiation. They appeared at the edge of human space and began systematically destroying every inhabited system they found. The display showed human fleets rallying to meet the threat. Jake saw ships like the Horizon's Edge joining massive battle formations, their weapons lighting up space as they fought desperately against the invading force. "We fought them," Jake said, feeling a strange pride in ancestors he had never known existed. "Humanity fought bravely," Meridian agreed. But the Devourers possessed technology that even human science could not match. For every enemy ship destroyed, 3 more would appear. They seemed to have unlimited numbers and no regard for their own losses. The battle scenes played out around them, showing the gradual retreat of human forces. Jake could see the desperation in the tactics being used, the sacrifice of entire fleets to buy time for civilian evacuations. The human leadership made a difficult decision, Meridian continued. Rather than fight to extinction, they chose survival. The Great Withdrawal was not a defeat, but a strategic retreat designed to preserve humanity for a future return. The scene shifted to show massive evacuation ships leaving human colonies. But Jake noticed something that surprised him. Not all the ships were heading toward Earth. "Where are the others going?" he asked. Some chose to seek refuge in remote systems where the Devourers might not find them. Others decided to blend in with primitive human populations that had been established on distant worlds. A few chose to go into deep hibernation, waiting for a time when humanity might be strong enough to return. Velthara floated closer to examine one of the evacuation scenes. "The scale of this operation is incredible. How did you manage to hide all evidence of such a vast civilization?" "Every piece of advanced technology was either destroyed or hidden," Meridian explained. "All computer records were wiped, all communication networks were shut down, and all star charts were encoded and scattered. The goal was to make it appear as if humanity had never achieved interstellar travel." Emma felt a chill as she realized the implications. You erased your own history to protect future generations. The hope was that humanity would eventually redevelop spaceflight naturally, and when they did, they would be ready to face whatever threats might still exist in the galaxy. The hidden ships and colonies were meant to serve as a foundation for that return. The scene around them changed again, showing the empty systems that had once housed human colonies. Nature was already beginning to reclaim the abandoned structures, and within a few centuries, there would be little evidence that humans had ever been there. "But the Devourers?" Jake asked. "What happened to them?" "Unknown," Meridian replied, and for the first time, her voice carried uncertainty. "After completing their sweep of human space, they disappeared beyond the galactic rim. Whether they moved on to other galaxies or returned to wherever they came from, we have no record." Kethmer had been studying the images of the Devourers' ships with growing alarm. "These vessels, their design philosophy is unlike anything in current galactic databases. If they still exist, then humanity's return to space might trigger their return as well," Meridian finished. "This is why the decision to reactivate the fleet must not be made lightly." Jake stared at the final image floating around them, showing Earth as it appeared thousands of years ago. The planet looked peaceful and blue, unaware that it had become the sole refuge of a species that had once ruled the stars. "How many humans are still out there?" he asked. "In the hidden colonies, I mean." "Difficult to estimate," Meridian replied. "The colonies were designed to be self-sufficient and maintain minimal contact with each other. Based on population growth models, there could be anywhere from 50,000 to several million humans living in hidden settlements throughout the galaxy." Emma moved to stand beside Jake, looking out at the vast starfield surrounding them. And they don't know that Earth has redeveloped spaceflight? The communication protocols require specific authorization codes that only a ship like the Horizon's Edge possesses. Without proper identification, the colonies will remain hidden even from other humans. The display began to fade, returning them to the normal view of the command center. But Jake felt changed by what he had seen. The weight of history pressed down on him, along with the responsibility of representing not just modern humanity, but the legacy of an entire lost civilization. "There's something else," Meridian said as the last images disappeared. "The technology aboard this ship and its sister vessels represents the pinnacle of human achievement from that era. Terraforming systems that can transform dead worlds into garden planets within decades. Medical technology that can extend human lifespan to several centuries. Energy sources that make current fusion reactors look like campfires." Valthara's colors shifted to indicate intense curiosity. Such technology could revolutionize the galaxy. Or destabilize it, Kethmer added grimly. The balance of power among coalition species is built on the assumption that no single race possesses overwhelming technological superiority. Jake understood what they were both thinking. The revelation of humanity's true capabilities would change everything. Some species might welcome humans as the returning elder race they apparently were. Others might see them as a threat that needed to be eliminated before they could reclaim their former power. "What do you recommend, Meridian?" Jake asked. "The choice remains yours, Commander Morrison, but I would suggest caution. The galaxy has changed much in the past 4,000 years. It would be wise to gather intelligence about current political situations before making any major decisions." Jake nodded slowly. Whatever he decided would affect not just the small team standing in this command center, but potentially millions of humans scattered across the galaxy, and billions of aliens who had no idea they were sharing space with. The descendants of a lost empire. The Horizon's Edge waited patiently for his command, her systems humming with the promise of adventures among the stars. But first, Jake had to decide whether humanity was ready to reclaim its birthright among the cosmos. 3 days had passed since Jake's discovery of the Horizon's Edge, and the secret was already spreading beyond their small team. Emma paced nervously around the ship's command center as she watched Meridian's displays showing approaching vessels. 12 Coalition ships, she announced to Jake, who was studying star charts at another console. "They'll be here within the hour." Jake looked up from the ancient navigation data he had been trying to understand. The symbols still felt familiar, but learning to actually use the ship's systems was proving more difficult than simply reading them. "Who's leading them?" "Admiral Zixtel of the Zephyrian Deep Space Command," Emma replied, her voice tight with worry. "And Commander Thelus from the Altarian Science Council. This isn't just a friendly visit, Jake. They're bringing their best people." Kethmer approached from where he had been examining one of the ship's defensive systems. His blue scales showed the pattern of deep concern that his people displayed in stressful situations. "Dr. Morrison, I must warn you that Admiral Zixtel is not known for his patience or diplomacy. He will likely demand immediate access to this vessel's technology." "Let him demand," Jake said, surprising himself with the firmness in his voice. "This ship only responds to humans. That's not something I chose. It's how it was built." Valthara floated over on her anti-gravity platform, her colors cycling through shades that indicated complex emotions. The political implications of this discovery cannot be ignored. If humanity possesses technology that predates all known civilizations, it challenges the fundamental assumptions upon which the coalition was built. Emma stopped pacing and looked at her colleagues. "Are you saying we should keep this secret?" "I am saying that revealing this information will have consequences none of us can predict," Valthara replied carefully. "Some species may welcome the return of humanity's advanced knowledge. Others may see it as a threat to their own position. in the galactic community. Meridian's voice filled the command center. Commander Morrison, the approaching vessels are attempting to scan the horizon's edge. Shall I activate defensive protocols? Jake felt a chill at the casual way the AI offered to defend itself. What exactly are defensive protocols? Energy. Barriers to prevent unauthorized boarding. Electronic countermeasures to block scanning attempts, and if necessary, defensive weaponry to discourage aggressive action. No weapons, Jake said quickly. Can you just block their scans without seeming threatening? Affirmative. Activating passive defense systems. On the displays around them, Jake could see the coalition ships adjusting their approach as their scanning equipment suddenly stopped working. The vessels seemed to hesitate, as if their crews were trying to understand what was happening. They're going to interpret that as a hostile act, Emma warned. Better than letting them get detailed scans of technology they're not ready to understand? Jake replied. He was beginning to realize that every decision he made had consequences that reached far beyond his single ship. The communication system activated, filling the command center with the harsh tones of Admiral Zixtel's voice. Unidentified vessel, you will lower your defensive systems immediately and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be considered an act of aggression against the coalition. Jake looked at his companions, seeing the mixture of fear and excitement in their faces. Meridian, open a communication channel. Channel open, Commander. Admiral Zixtel, this is Dr. Jake Morrison of the Archaeological Expedition. We are aboard a recently discovered vessel of unknown origin. The ship's defensive systems activated automatically when you attempted to scan it. We mean no aggression toward the coalition. Dr. Morrison, came the Admiral's reply, you will surrender control of that vessel immediately. Our preliminary scans indicate technology that poses a potential threat to galactic security. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. This ship doesn't belong to the coalition, Admiral. It was built by humans, and it responds only to human commands. I have no intention of surrendering it to anyone. There was a long pause before Zixtel responded. Humans are a member species of the coalition, Dr. Morrison. Any advanced technology discovered by human researchers falls under coalition jurisdiction for evaluation and potential distribution. Emma stepped closer to the communication console. Admiral, this isn't just advanced technology. This ship predates the coalition by thousands of years. It represents an entirely unknown chapter of galactic history. Then it is even more important that it be studied by coalition scientists, interrupted Commander Phyllis, her musical Altarian voice joining the conversation. Such technology cannot be allowed to remain in the hands of a single species. Meridians. Voice spoke privately to Jake through the ship's internal communication system. Commander, the coalition vessels have powered their weapons and are taking aggressive formation positions. Their intent appears hostile. Jake closed his eyes for a moment, trying to think clearly. The situation was escalating beyond his control, and he wasn't sure how to de-escalate it without either surrendering the ship or starting a conflict. Meridian, he said quietly, if they attack, can you defend the ship without hurting anyone? Horizon's Edge possesses non-lethal defensive systems designed for exactly such situations. I can disable their vessels without causing permanent damage or loss of life. Do it. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The coalition ships suddenly found their weapons powering down, their engines shutting off, and their life support systems switching to emergency backup power. In less than 30 seconds, 12 modern warships had been reduced to helpless hulks floating in space. The communication channel erupted with angry voices as the coalition commanders tried to understand what had happened to their ships. Jake waited for the shouting to die down before speaking. Your vessels are unharmed, he announced calmly. Full power will be restored in 1 hour. Consider this a demonstration that the Horizon's Edge is not a threat you can handle with conventional Force. Morrison, Admiral Zixtel's voice was filled with rage. You have just committed an act of war against the Coalition. No, Jake replied firmly. I've demonstrated that this ship will defend itself when threatened. Your ships are intact, your crews are safe, and you'll have full power restored shortly. If that's an act of war, then you have a strange definition of the term. Emma grabbed Jake's arm. You just disabled 12 Coalition warships. Do you have any idea what kind of response this is going to bring? Jake looked around the command center, seeing the worried faces of his companions. Kethmer's scales were showing the rapid patterns that indicated extreme stress among his people. Velthara's colors had gone completely white, which Emma knew meant terror in Altarian physiology. I didn't want this to happen, Jake said quietly. But I won't hand over human technology to people who threaten us with weapons. Our ancestors hid this ship for a reason. Commander Morrison, came a new voice over the communication system. This one was calmer, more measured than the others. This is High Counselor Zender of the Coalition Council. I am aboard one of the disabled vessels. Jake felt his stomach drop. The High Counselor was one of the most powerful beings in the known galaxy, leader of the species that had founded the Coalition itself. High Counselor, Jake replied, trying to keep his voice steady. I meant no disrespect to the Coalition or its leadership. Yet you have demonstrated a level of technological superiority that changes the fundamental balance of power in our region of space, Zender replied. This cannot be ignored or simply dismissed. Meridian's voice spoke privately to Jake again. Commander, I am detecting additional ships approaching from multiple vectors. It appears the Coalition is mobilizing a much larger response force. Jake looked at the tactical display that Meridian had activated, showing dozens of ships converging on their position. How many? Current count is 47 vessels, with more arriving hourly. They appear to be taking up positions to establish a blockade around this planet. Emma saw the display and went pale. Jake, they're not just sending a diplomatic mission anymore. That's an invasion fleet. What do we do now? Kethmer asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Jake stared at the growing fleet on the display, realizing that his simple decision to protect the ship had just triggered the largest military mobilization in Coalition history. The Horizon's Edge had the power to defend itself against any conventional force, but using that power would mean openly declaring war against the galactic government. Meridian, he said finally, how long would it take to wake up the other ships? In the fleet? With proper authorization codes, the entire Outer Rim fleet could be activated within 72 hours. Jake took a deep breath, understanding that he was about to make a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Around him, the ship hummed with patient power, waiting for his command. Outside, dozens of Coalition warships were preparing for what they believed would be humanity's surrender. They were about to discover just how wrong they were. Jake stood in the center of the command chamber, surrounded by displays showing the ever-growing Coalition fleet. 63 ships now floated in space around the planet, their weapons trained on the buried location of the Horizon's Edge. The tension had been building for 6 hours, and Jake knew that something had to give soon. Commander Morrison, High Counselor Zender's voice, came through the communication system again. I am prepared to offer you terms for a peaceful resolution to this crisis. Jake exchanged glances with Emma, who nodded encouragingly. I'm listening, High Counselor. Surrender the vessel to Coalition custody for study, and humanity will be granted advanced membership status in the Coalition Council. Your people will have equal voting rights with the founding species and access to all Coalition technologies and trade networks. Emma stepped closer to Jake. That's actually a generous offer. Advanced membership usually takes centuries to achieve. But Jake was studying the tactical displays that Meridian had shown him. He could see the positioning of the Coalition fleet, the way they had surrounded the planet completely. This wasn't the formation of negotiators. This was the formation of people preparing for war. And if I refuse? Jake asked. Then you will be classified as a rogue element threatening galactic security, Zender replied. The Coalition will have no choice but to neutralize the threat you represent. Kethmer moved nervously near one of the consoles. Commander Morrison, perhaps we should consider the High Counselor's offer. The Coalition has never made such generous terms available to any species. Jake looked at his Zephyrian colleague. Tell me, Kethmore, in all your species' dealings with the Coalition, have they ever surrounded your planet with a battle fleet while making generous offers? Kethmer's scales flickered with the pattern that indicated uncomfortable realization. No, they have not. Meridian, Jake said quietly, what's your assessment of the Coalition's intentions? Based on fleet positioning and communication patterns, the probability of a peaceful resolution is less than 12%, the AI replied. The Coalition appears to be using negotiation as a delaying tactic while they position forces for a decisive strike. Velthara floated closer, her colors showing deep concern. If that assessment is correct, then any agreement reached now will likely be violated once the Coalition believes they have sufficient force to take the ship. Emma felt her heart sink as she realized what Jake was thinking. You're going to wake up the fleet, aren't you? Jake was quiet for a long moment, staring at the star charts that showed the locations of the other hidden ships. I don't want to start a war, Emma, but I won't let them take this ship just so they can point our own weapons at us later. There might be another way, Emma said suddenly. What if we don't surrender the ship, but we also don't threaten them? What if we just leave? Leave? Jake asked. The ship can fly, right? What if we just take it and go somewhere else? Find one of those hidden human colonies Meridian talked about. Let the Coalition have this planet, but keep the ship out of their hands. Meridian's voice filled the command center. Dr. Rodriguez's suggestion has merit. The Horizon's Edge is fully operational and capable of interstellar travel. However, the Coalition fleet is positioned to prevent our departure. Could we get past them? Jake asked. The Horizon's Edge possesses stealth capabilities that exceed current Coalition detection technology. However, once we begin moving, we would be detected and pursued. Jake made his decision. Meridian, prepare the ship for departure. But first, I want to send a message to the Coalition fleet. Channel open, Commander. Jake took a deep breath before speaking. High Counselor Zender, Admiral Zixtel, Commander Philos, and all Coalition personnel. I appreciate your offers and understand your concerns, but I cannot and will not surrender this ship to anyone. The communication channel immediately erupted with angry voices, but Jake continued speaking over them. However, I also don't want to fight you, so I'm going to propose something different. The Horizon's Edge is leaving this system. We're going to find our own path among the stars, one that doesn't threaten the Coalition, but also doesn't surrender human independence. You cannot leave. Admiral Zixtel's voice cut through the others. We will not allow a rogue vessel with unknown capabilities to roam free in Coalition space. Then you'll have to stop us, Jake replied simply. Meridian, take us up. The buried ship began to rise from the ground, tons of dirt and rock cascading off its hull as it emerged into daylight for the first time in thousands of years. The Coalition fleet immediately began moving to intercept, their weapons powering up and targeting systems locking onto the ascending vessel. Warning shots across our bow, Emma reported, watching the tactical display as energy beams flashed. Past the ship. They're trying to disable our engines, Meridian announced calmly, activating evasive maneuvers. The Horizon's Edge moved with impossible grace for something so large, sliding between the Coalition ships like water flowing around stones. Every time the Coalition forces tried to get a targeting lock, the ship seemed to slip away at the last. "Second, how are we doing this?" Jake asked, watching in amazement as they avoided dozens of weapons firing at them. "The ship's AI is integrated with systems your Coalition friends have never encountered," Meridian explained. "Their targeting computers cannot predict movement patterns based on technology they do not understand. They cleared the atmosphere and entered open space, but the Coalition fleet was still in pursuit." Jake could see on the displays that more ships were arriving from other systems, trying to box them in. "Meridian, I need you to do something that's going to sound crazy." Jake sighed. "I want you to contact the other ships in the fleet. All of them." "Commander, activating the entire fleet will be interpreted as an act of war. I'm not asking you to wake them up. I just want you to send them a message. Tell them that humanity is returning to space, but we're choosing the path of exploration, not conquest. Tell them to reveal themselves to the galaxy, but as friends, not as conquerors." Emma stared at Jake. "You're going to announce the existence of 47 advanced human ships all at once?" "I'm going to show the Coalition that humanity isn't a threat they can eliminate or control," Jake replied. "But I'm also going to show them that we're not going away." "Message transmitted," Meridian announced. Within minutes, the response began. Across the galaxy, ancient human ships began emerging from their hiding places. They appeared in orbit around populated worlds, at major trade stations, and near Coalition military bases. Each ship transmitted the same message, a greeting of Vav, peace from the returning human fleet, along with an offer to share non-military technology for the benefit of all species. The effect on the Coalition fleet pursuing them was immediate. Suddenly, every Coalition commander was receiving reports of human ships appearing throughout their territory. The pursuit slowed as ship captains waited for orders from their confused leadership. "Brilliant," Velthara said, her colors shifting to indicate admiration. "You've turned this from a local incident into a galaxy-wide revelation. They can't attack one ship when 47 others are peacefully introducing themselves to their neighbors." Jake watched the tactical display as the Coalition ships gradually stopped their pursuit. "Meridian, are the other ships following our lead?" "Affirmative. All vessels are maintaining peaceful postures while offering technological and medical assistance to nearby populations. The response from civilian populations has been overwhelmingly positive." High Counselor Zender's voice came through the communication system one more time, but now it carried a tone of resigned acceptance rather than anger. "Commander Morrison, it appears you have forced a galaxy-wide conversation about humanity's place in the cosmic community. That was the idea." "High Counselor," Jake replied, "humanity is ready to rejoin galactic civilization, but as equals, not as subjects." Emma moved to stand beside Jake as they watched the Coalition fleet forming up into a more defensive posture. "So what happens now?" "Now we go exploring," Jake said, looking at the star charts that showed dozens of lost human colonies waiting to be reconnected. "We find our people, we learn what we can about the galaxy as it is today, and we figure out how to make this work for everyone." Meridian's voice carried what almost sounded like satisfaction. "Setting course for the Outer Rim territories, Commander? The Horizon's Edge is ready to sail again." As their ship moved away from the Coalition fleet and toward the open stars, Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He had just changed the course of galactic history, awakening a sleeping giant that had been dormant for thousands of years. But looking out at the infinite expanse of space ahead, of them he felt something else too. Hope. Humanity was going home to the stars.